We've had a number of substantive discussions with the Iranians. The bad news is that we have not reached an agreement. We just could not get to a situation where the Iranians were willing to accept our terms.
We win regardless. We've defeated them militarily, defeated all of their water boats. All of them are sunk.
Ladies and gentlemen, on 12th of April 2026, the President of the United States posted 6 words on Truth Social that sent shockwaves in the Indian market. The United States will be blocking all ships from the Strait of Hormuz.
The US president has ordered his navy to
blockade of the Strait of Hormuz.
But we're putting on a complete blockade. We're not going to let Iran make money. Iran will not be able to sell oil, and that would be very effective.
Now, we already saw a glimpse of what could happen if the strait is blocked with the LPG crisis in India. But if this strait is blocked for long, India might also witness a food crisis. And that is terrifying for the Indian market. Now, the question is, India is an agricultural nation, right? Agriculture was supposed to be the backbone of India. So if the Strait of Hormuz gets blocked, why will we witness a food crisis? Look at this map. These arrows represent the 6 supply lines that feed India. These are fertilizer supply lines, and every crop grown in India, every single one of them requires 3 nutrients: nitrogen, phosphorus and potassium. India controls almost none of them.
India today relies heavily on imports for key fertilizer inputs.
आज दुनिया का सबसे बड़ा फर्टिलाइजर इंपोर्ट करने वाला कंट्री इंडिया है. India depends heavily on imports of such as urea, diammonium phosphate or DAP.
And that is what makes it risky as well as dangerous.
Now this is where it gets scary. Look at this. I went back and pulled India's agricultural data going all the way back to 1951. This is India's food grain yield per hectare over the last 73 years. And this line is the fertilizer consumption per hectare. In 1951, India applied 0.49 kilograms of nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium per hectare. And we produced 536 kilograms of grain. Today, we apply 139 kilograms per hectare and we produce 2,515 kilograms. And this ratio should terrify you. You know why? Because while our yields have gone up by 5 times, our fertilizer use has gone up by 280 times. And 50% of these fertilizers actually come through this 21-mile seaway called the Strait of Hormuz.
The Strait of Hormuz. It is about 33 kilometers wide, yet around a fifth of the world's oil, roughly 20 million barrels a day, passes through it. And more than 80% of the oil that leaves it heads to Asia.
And you know, the Modi government has been protecting the farmers with all its might.
Union Cabinet has increased fertilizer subsidies ahead of the Kharif season.
माननीय प्रधानमंत्री श्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी ने कोविड हो चाहे वेस्ट एशिया में कॉन्फ्लिक्ट हो, किसान भाइयों के लिए सेफ्टी शील्ड बन के खड़े हुए.
जो यूरिया हमें महंगे दामों पर विदेशों से मंगाना पड़ता है, हम उसकी भी चोट अपने किसानों पर नहीं पड़ने देते. बीजेपी सरकार सब्सिडी देकर वो भार सरकार खुद उठाती है.
In fact, you will be shocked to know that the Indian government buys fertilizers at 2,200 rupees per bag, but it sells it to the farmers at just 242 rupees. So for each bag of fertilizer, you, me and every other taxpayer is paying 1,958 rupees. In total, the Indian government spent 6.77 lakh crores on fertilizers since the Russia-Ukraine war. And this number is more than what we spend on education and healthcare. Now, when I saw this, I thought, okay, 6.77 lakh crores is an insane number, but at least it's helping our farmers. But you know what? That's when I found something even scarier. I pulled soil health data from Punjab, Haryana and UP, and here's what I found. This 6.77 lakh crore subsidy is not saving Indian agriculture, it is in fact killing India's agriculture. It has created a doom loop where cheap fertilizers are destroying the very soil they were supposed to protect, which means farmers need more fertilizers every year, which means more imports, a bigger subsidy bill, and more dependence on countries that we have no control over. And the worst part is that due to these fertilizers, the lands in Punjab and Haryana are on track to become barren lands within decades. The groundwater is already contaminated, and no amount of subsidy can fix dead soil.
Punjab's farmlands are now burdened by excessive use of chemical fertilizers.
Farmers are often not aware of the right amount of fertilizers to be used. This adversely affects the soil fertility and crop output.
मेरे खेत में जो कपास की फसल है वो सब खत्म है और बाग भी खत्म होने के कगार पर है.
So the question is, when agriculture is the backbone of India, why are we not Atmanirbhar with fertilizers? When it's killing our soil, why is the Modi government forced to supply the fertilizers that are now acting as poison for us? And what's the billion-dollar business opportunity hiding in this trap? This video is brought to you by Outskill. People, the world does not reward effort anymore. It rewards power. And today, power isn't measured by military might or bank balances. It is measured by the might of technology that an individual or a corporation possesses. The nation that controls technology ultimately controls the world's supply chain, its economy, and ultimately its future. And at the heart of this global shift is one force that you just cannot ignore, which is artificial intelligence. Today, AI is not just a trend, guys. It's a fundamental shift in how the world operates. Corporations are using it to outpace competition, and professionals are using it to multiply their output. And the gap between those who master AI and those who ignore it isn't just widening, it's becoming a canyon. In a few years, AI won't be a skill, it will be a tool of survival. And to ensure that you stay on the right side of the shift, Outskill is hosting a free 2-day live AI training this weekend. This is a 16-hour hands-on intensive workshop which will be conducted on Saturday and Sunday between 10 a.m. and 7 p.m. This workshop is designed to turn theory into execution. In this workshop, you will learn how to build an AI toolkit with 10 plus industry-leading tools, the art of prompt engineering for elite-level results, how to automate repetitive tasks without writing a single line of code, how to generate high-end presentations, images, and videos, and most importantly, you will also learn how to deploy your own AI agents. This program has already empowered over 1 lakh professionals across 40 countries. Now, while this training is typically valued at 10,000 rupees, it is being offered completely free just for ThinkSchool subscribers. So if you're serious about remaining relevant in a world that is changing very, very fast, please do not wait. Click the link in the description, sign up for the workshop, and secure your spot today. You see, every plant on earth needs 3 things to grow: nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. We call them NPK. Nitrogen is what makes a plant green. It's the building block of chlorophyll. Chlorophyll, as we all know, captures sunlight and turns it into energy. And without nitrogen, plants cannot photosynthesize. So nitrogen deficient plants turn yellow and they slowly die. Then comes phosphorus. Phosphorus is the underground workhorse. It builds root systems, it transfers energy through the plant, and it's responsible for flowering and fruiting. So no phosphorus means no wheat grain, no rice, and no dal. And lastly, potassium is the immune system. It regulates water inside plant cells, activates enzymes, and protects the crops from diseases. So a potassium deficient field looks healthy, but it can easily get infected and result into yield collapse. Now, the reason why all this matters is because soil is not infinitely replenishing. Every time you grow a crop, you pull nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium out of the ground. So if you don't put it back, the soil will get depleted, yields will drop, and people will go hungry. And until 100 years ago, we had absolutely no idea on how to make chemical fertilizers and put it back into the soil. In fact, in the late 1800s, the world almost ran out of food. Yes, the world literally ran out of food. To understand how we got here, I had to go back 100 years. In 1800, Earth had more than 1 billion people, and it took 300,000 years of human history to get there, which is a population of 1 billion people. And then industrialization happened. The world added another 600 million people in just 100 years, and we reached a population of 1.6 billion people by 1900. But while the population was exploding, the food supply was not keeping up. Look at this. This red mountain is not population. It's the number of people that the planet could not reliably feed. In 1800, we had no deficit at all. The world could literally produce enough food to feed everyone. But suddenly, as you see in this graph, as the population increased after 1900, the deficit started shooting up. Not all of them were starving at once, but they were one bad harvest away, one price spike away, one war away from the disaster. This is the reason why we started to see a lot of famines in India. In fact, in British India alone, we witnessed 24 major famines between 1850 and 1899 that killed around 15 million people.
India, more floods and more famine in a land swept by starvation. The death rate, already 1,000 a week, rises.
The Great Famine of Madras was one of the 31 famines in the 120 years of British Raj.
The area of Bengal experienced a famine that claimed the lives of anywhere between 2 and 5 million people.
This was the terrible state of agriculture. And you know what? There was only one significant source of nitrogen fertilizer. And this source was bird poop. Yes, bird poop. And not just any bird poop. The Chincha Islands off the coast of Peru had poop layers of over 60 meters thick, which got built up over centuries of seabirds nesting. And from 1840 to 1870s, Peru exported 12 to 15 million tons of guano, which was basically bird poop. And this bird poop was almost about to get over. But this is where a miracle happened. Scientists knew that nitrogen was everywhere. In fact, 78% of our atmosphere is nitrogen. But plants cannot absorb it from the air. In nature, nitrogen is mostly available as dinitrogen, where two nitrogen atoms are bound together. This bond is one of the strongest chemical bonds in nature, and plants do not have the capacity to break it. In 1909, a German chemist named Fritz Haber discovered a miraculous chemical equation. He discovered that if you take nitrogen from the air and hydrogen from natural gas and you crush them together at temperatures between 400 to 500 degrees Celsius under pressures exceeding 200 atmospheres with an iron catalyst, you could get ammonia, or NH3. And ammonia is the foundation of all nitrogen fertilizer. In soil, that ammonia turns into ammonium and nitrate, which the plants can actually absorb. And from there, the plant rebuilds that nitrogen into leaves, grain, and protein. And then, a chemical engineer named Haber-Bosch scaled Haber's lab reaction into something that could feed the entire civilization. In fact, this is the reason why the Haber-Bosch process is considered to be the most important chemical reaction in human history. Because it's only after the Haber-Bosch reaction that the food deficit of the world collapsed. In fact, without the Haber-Bosch process, the earth could only support 4 billion people. But today, as we all know, 8 billion people are about to eat because one man discovered a magical chemical reaction. But you know what? Here's where the story gets darker. The hydrogen that goes into Haber-Bosch process comes from natural gas. So no natural gas means no hydrogen means no ammonia, and no ammonia means no nitrogen fertilizer. And as we all know, no nitrogen fertilizer means no food. Now here's where India's problem stops being an economic story and becomes a geopolitics story. Look what I found when I mapped global fertilizer reserves. The countries that make nitrogen cheaply are actually the countries that have cheap gas. Russia, Qatar, Oman, Saudi Arabia, and the United States of America. Now, if you look at this graph, India is the third largest producer of ammonia. But we don't produce ammonia all by ourselves. We either buy ammonia or we produce ammonia with the gas that we buy from Arab countries. So either we import ammonia or we import gas and then we produce ammonia, both of which requires ships to travel through the Strait of Hormuz. If this is clear, let's go to the second element. The second element of a fertilizer is phosphorus. Now, phosphorus doesn't come from gas. It comes from ancient seabed deposits. And this is where geography gets truly alarming for India. Look at this. A country called Morocco controls 70% of the world's known phosphate reserves. They have 50 billion tons of reserves. Number 2 is our dear neighbor China with 3.4 billion tons, and number 3 is Egypt with 2.8 billion tons. And India only has 31 million tons of phosphate reserves. Not billion, 31 million tons of phosphate reserves. So, does India have enough phosphate to be able to feed its entire population? Not at all. And then, if you look at potash, the picture gets worse. Potash is the strangest element of all. It comes from prehistoric oceans which dried up hundreds of millions of years ago. And when they dried up, they left behind salt flats which are rich in potassium. And by geopolitical luck, these deposits ended up in 3 countries: Canada produces 15 million metric tons of potash per year, Russia produces 9 million tons, and Belarus produces 7 million tons. Together, these three countries control over 70% of global potash production. And you know how much potash India has? India has zero potash reserves. So the moral of the story is that India imports all of phosphate, India makes ammonia but with gas that is imported, and India imports almost all of potash. Now at this point, the obvious question is, why not go organic? Just stop the chemical fertilizers and transition the farmers to organic farming. Well, I thought the same. So I looked at data. You see, India feeds 1.4 billion people. Organic farming at its optimistic best would cut yields by 20 to 25% at the least. So we will be leaving 280 to 350 million people starving. So we don't have that option at all, and we never did. And that's where this chart comes back again. In 1951, like I said, India was putting 0.49 kilograms of nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium per hectare, and we were producing 536 kilograms per hectare. This is when India was a starving nation. And then came the miraculous Green Revolution.
By 1968, the Indian Green Revolution was born. At the center of the Green Revolution was a rapid increase in the production of wheat across the states of Punjab, Haryana, and Uttar Pradesh.
In the 1960s and 70s, if you look at this graph, we brought new crop varieties, new irrigation, and we started using fertilizers more and more. By 1970, India was applying 13.61 kg of NPK per hectare, and yields had climbed up to 872 kg per hectare. By 1990, fertilizer use was at 67.55 kg per hectare, and yield was at 1380 kg per hectare. By 2010, we applied 144.94 kg per hectare and produced 1930 kg per hectare. And today, India applies 139.69 kg of NPK per hectare, and the food grain yields have reached 2515 kg per hectare. So, while our yields have gone up by 5 times, the consumption of fertilizer has shot up by 280 times. So, is our agriculture really strong? Not at all. In fact, agriculture has now become India's weakness because we're actually dependent on foreign countries to feed our own population. But you know what? The story gets even scarier. Like I said, because we import urea, it is so costly that the government of India buys a 45 kg urea bag at 2,200 rupees, and the farmers only have to pay 242 rupees per bag. And like I said, since the Russia-Ukraine war, the government of India has burned through 6.77 lakh crores on subsidies, which is more than what we spent on education or healthcare. And this is leading to another problem. You see, because fertilizer is subsidized, the farmers think applying more fertilizers will automatically result into more yield. And on the outset, it seems logically true. But when I saw the soil data from Punjab, it sent jitters down my spine.
Punjab, today, this very soil faces a silent crisis: contamination.
इंटेंसिव फार्मिंग ने कैसे तबाही की है, सारी फूड में जो कंटेमिनेशन हुई है, एनवायरमेंटल कंटेमिनेशन, आई थिंक पंजाब इज अ क्लासिक एग्जांपल ऑफ दैट.
You see, the ideal NPK ratio, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium ratio for Indian soils is 4:2:1. But in Punjab right now, farmers are dumping so much nitrogen that the actual ratio of application is 31.4 to 8:1, nearly 8 times more nitrogen than the soil can actually use. And you know what this does? This causes 3 devastating problems. Firstly, too much nitrogen and too little potassium and sodium will kill soil microbes, reduce organic matter, and make the land less responsive to fertilizer every single year. And we saw that in the graph earlier, right? Our yields have gone up by 5 times, but the fertilizer use has gone up by 280 times. Eventually, our most fertile lands will end up being barren lands with no value at all. Secondly, the crop cannot use all of this fertilizer overload. So, it is pushed into the groundwater and washed into canals as nitrate. And that is the same water that people drink and cook with. In fact, in parts of Punjab and Haryana, those nitrate levels are already touching dangerous levels. And this could be cancerous and even cause blue baby syndrome.
CGWB reveals that 440 districts across India have high nitrate levels in their groundwater.
Punjab is the worst affected state, with Haryana being the second, with 14% in terms of uranium prevalence in groundwater.
पानी की क्वालिटी की काफी चिंता क्योंकि बढ़ गई है, तो नाइट्रेट जो छोटे बच्चों में ब्लू बेबी सिंड्रोम पैदा कर सकता है और आर्सेनिक लंबे समय तक पीने से लंग्स और ब्रीदिंग में प्रॉब्लम ला सकता है.
And thirdly, as the soil gets weaker and the water gets dirtier, farmers do not have the luxury to cut back. They are forced to throw even more fertilizer just to avoid losing the harvest. And that means more imported gas, more imported potash, more imported phosphate, and a subsidy bill that keeps on swelling every single year without actually leading to real growth. So if we stay on this path, we end up in a nightmare loop. Dead soil, poisoned water, and no food for 1 billion people. But now the question over here is, what exactly is the Modi government doing to solve this problem, and how can you as a business owner solve this problem and build an amazing business? You see, this is where, guys, Divakar, who was one of our guests at the podcast, he said something very interesting. He said,
when it comes to alignment of public behavior, there are 3 buckets, the 3 P's as I call it: priority, paranoia, and prohibition.
So now the question is, how can you actually solve this problem? Is it some rocket science? Well, as it turns out, it is not rocket science. The first solution is nano urea. And if you're building something in the drone or urea space, the government will actually buy from you because you can save them thousands of crores every single year. Like I told you, the government of India is paying 2,200 rupees per bag of urea and it is selling it to the farmers at 242 rupees. But this is where nano urea could become a miracle. In simple words, to get a plant to absorb, you throw urea on the ground and you hope that it rains and then you wait for it to dissolve into the soil. But in this process, 70% of urea is washed away by rain. But this is where nano urea comes off as a miracle. Nano urea is basically urea granules broken down into 30 to 50 nanoparticles. This nano urea can be sprayed directly onto the leaves using drones, where they enter the plant through the stomata and go straight into the phylum. Now here's the magic. While a bag of urea costs the government 2,200 rupees in real cost, a bottle of nano urea can actually be sprayed by drone for just 500 rupees and it can replace the entire 45 kg bag of urea. So the farmer's cost might shoot up from 242 rupees to 500 rupees, but the government's cost will drop from 2,200 rupees to 0, which means even if the government starts providing subsidy for nano urea, it will actually save a lot of money. In fact, it will save 1,700 rupees per bag. Now the question over here is spraying nano urea actually efficient? Well, my study says that the nitrogen efficiency jumps from 30 to 40% to 80 to 90% with nano urea. In fact, this is the reason why state governments of Haryana, UP and Andhra Pradesh are aggressively deploying nano urea spraying.
Indian scientists and engineers from IFCO finally developed and launched the world's first nano urea recently.
हरियाणा में पहली बार इफ्को की तरफ से जो है नैनो यूरिया तरल पदार्थ का लॉन्चिंग की जा रही है कि नैनो यूरिया खेतों व किसानों के लिए वरदान साबित होगी.
So out of the 3 supply lines, right now, India has a partial answer for one of them. So if you're building in the space of drones, agri-tech or precision delivery, the government is actively looking for you. But you know what, guys? That still doesn't change the fact that we are still buying phosphorus from Morocco and we have zero leverage with Canada, Russia or Belarus for potash. And this doom loop of cheap urea, overuse, dead soil and more urea, it is still spinning very, very fast. And remember those 6 arrows that I showed you at the start? Every single one of them is still there, and every single line is a rope around India's neck. Every Kharif season that passes with no change is another cycle of poison, another year of dependence, another $1 billion bill that you and I are paying. The only question is, who is going to cut them? This is the story of India's fertilizer dependence and a food crisis that we are barely procrastinating with each passing year. And if the Strait of Hormuz stays closed for long, you and I will witness a food crisis next season. And I just hope this never happens. That's all from my side for today, guys. If you learned something valuable, please make sure to hit the like button in order to make YouTube Baba happy. And for more such insightful business and political case studies, please subscribe to our channel. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.